measuring how effective or otherwise we are on that. Other tools open for raising things in Parliament are obviously parliamentary questions. Don't be fooled by this. Any MP can ask any number of written parliamentary questions on any day that they want to. They're limited to 5 what's called priority written or name day answers, which have to be answered 3 days later. But you can put down ordinary written, which can be, you can put down any number any day, on responsibilities of government departments. Oral questions can be tabled at the latest 3 sitting days before the various Secretaries of State have to answer. So, for example, next Tuesday is Foreign Office questions, and they had to be in by 3 sitting days, so they had to be in by last Wednesday, for example. And it follows for every other department. Other areas of smoking out government information and opinion is by applying for adjournment debates, which can either be half an hour at the end of every day, every sitting day. They're applied for and given out basically by a lottery, except Thursdays, which is the selection of the speaker. And also we can get up to 3 hours debates in Westminster Hall, which again no vote is taken, but the Minister has to reply. And these have been quite effective on issues like cluster bombs, DU, weaponry, Trident costs and replacement. I can think of various issues that we've managed to raise, and lots on Palestine that we've had. Again, ways of raising issues so that it kind of is more in the political domain. There's some chance of getting media coverage as a result of that. Parliament is basically a very self-important place, and a lot of MPs think that they are major movers and shakers in public opinion, and what they say in Parliament has huge impact. The reality is, most of what's said in Parliament gets very little coverage whatsoever. And in a sense, if Parliament debates an issue, it's usually a result of outside pressure rather than internal pressure in Parliament. Now, as a way of focusing it, we have formed, there are a very large number of all-party groups on just about every subject that you could ever think of. We have, Carol was very active in this, we have founded a group on Afghanistan in which Caroline Lucas and Paul Flynn are the joint chairs of it. I'm one of the members of it, and that meets regularly and holds public meetings in Parliament and so on, and has been useful in getting other MPs involved. Now, sometimes an MP might come along and say, well, they don't agree with us on the troops' out position in Afghanistan, but they are concerned about corruption, they are concerned about mineral resources, they are concerned about the drug industry, they are concerned about safety, all kinds of things. Now, it's very frustrating working with people sometimes in a very limited way, but it is a way of kind of moving the issue along a bit. It doesn't change our opinions, but it's a way of moving things along a bit. The last point to make is, in lobbying, I get hundreds, if not thousands, of emails every week from all kinds of people on all kinds of subjects, and it is often quite difficult to cope with the volume we get. And so I, myself and my office, go through them every day, and we try and sift out those that are constituents who contact them with a legitimate local problem or local issue they want to deal with. Those that are lobbying, or those that are abusive, or sometimes they're the funny ones. They're the ones that keep going. And then act accordingly. But what I have noticed is that the change of culture from the letter and phone call to emails has completely changed the levels of participation, understanding and involvement. Put it this way, I've been an MP since 1983. I used to then get maybe 200 items of post per day, either constituents' letters or circulars or whatever else, about 200 items a day. We now get much less than that, but we get far more by way of email. And these mass email campaigns irritate the hell out of MPs, but they do work. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to work necessarily in Afghanistan or Iraq that simply, but the one on the forest sale was on the roof. The government comes up with this cockamamie idea that we're going to sell off all the national forests, and within 3 days there were thousands of emails coming in on it. And I heard all these Tory MPs saying, God, why are all these people writing about the forests? They couldn't understand it. And it worked. So this kind of mass campaigning does have an effect. It's limited and specific, but it is worth bearing in mind. The way you lobby MPs is obviously put pressure on them. best to come from a constituent rather than a scattergun approach. So targeted, got somebody in Newark, lobbies the MP for Newark, ask them to take something up, write it down, and then follow it up. But it's quite tedious sometimes, particularly if the MP is very hostile in the first place. But it's worth following up. So I went to a model organisation of a lobby on Thursday, which was the people arguing for what used to be called the Tobin tax, now called the transaction tax. Very well organised, very large number of people, specific time for each MP to meet people from their constituent. And even though I knew all these people, they gave me their very good arguments in favour of the transaction tax, went through it all, and then they wrote down what I said I would do. And then they wrote back to me to confirm what I said I would do. That's very good, very efficient. So, I mean, I'm going to do it anyway, it's not a problem. But it was kind of, you feel, it's quite good. You feel, okay, that lobby was worthwhile, and they think it was worthwhile. So lobbying is frustrating. Parliament is a very frustrating place, but nevertheless, it's a very important place. And we do our best through our various peace and anti-war groups. We have the Afghan group, we have the CND group, and there are various other groups that we can work with on this. But I hope that's kind of helpful to you in describing how lobbying can be done. Thank you.
Questions, contributions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Mike Phipps, Chair of Brent Stop the War, and I would say if, like this brother here, you've got problems with lobbying MPs, it's probably a good thing to do it anyway, just to prove to larger numbers of people what a waste of time you think most of them are. I remember when we had, you start the debate, you write to them and ask them something, and then they sort of write back, and what they usually give you is the Foreign Office brief on the topic, which is full of nonsense, frankly, and then you're engaged in some kind of debate. And it's, rather than taking people off to the House of Commons, go and meet them at the surgery on a Saturday morning or whatever, and this can be really, really useful, and the more people you take along the better, and if you get them to meet a dozen of you. And we went to see Barry Gardner in Brent North some years ago over Iraq, and you know, once we got beyond the Foreign Office line, it was absolutely clear he did not have a clue what he was talking about, and he was just resorting to the platitudes that you get in the mainstream media. And we had these people who came along, constituents of his, with photographs of dead Iraqi children and so on and so forth. And you know, if you think MPs are a waste of time, this is your way of proving to large numbers of other peace activists that this MP is a complete waste of time. And I would say that's a starting point. Now, the Foreign Office gives regular briefings to MPs, and there was one recently about the current sort of Arab Spring, and it would be very useful if Stop the War could get hold of this and put it on the website, frankly, because the whole tone of what the Foreign Office is saying about Libya and the sort of belligerence and militarism in relation to that is in complete contrast with how we're urging with caution the Bahraini government to be a little bit more gentle in the way that it tear gases and clubs and kills people. So, you know, it's worth actually looking at the complete double standards in print that the Foreign Office briefings to backbench MPs have on that. And that's a good starting point to getting into some kind of discussion with MPs. But I want to finish on by saying something a little bit controversial. I think you can actually go a lot further than lobbying, and I can only speak for the Labour Party, but in my experience, we've got a Labour Party in Brent which is closing half the libraries, and in my particular part of Brent, they're absolutely, this is Kensal Green, you've probably seen it on BBC News, Newsnight, and Alan Bennett came to talk, and it's been on Channel 4, it's been massive coverage. And in the first instance, people, Brent residents saying, oh, Labour Council, typical, I'm going to vote Lib Dem, join the Greens, whatever. In fact, we've managed to recruit quite a large number of people into the Labour Party, and they have come in for one reason, and that is to no confidence the councillors and to deselect the councillors that are doing this. And I think it seems to me, you know, that's very small and that's very basic, but if you can do that around a library, why can't you do it around issues like Iraq and Afghanistan? If you've got a peace group and some of them want to actually get involved in the political nitty-gritty, get them into the party of the MP that's actually spouting this Foreign Office line, whether it's the Lib Dems or Labour or whatever. I don't know if there's much purpose of doing it in the Tories, and I don't even think the Tories have regular reselection of MPs, but certainly Labour do. Get them in and deselect the MPs who are doing this. Because, you know, ultimately you can think, okay, that's just too kind of party-oriented and parliament-oriented, but what's the alternative strategy? You can call a demonstration, you'll get 25,000 people. It's not enough. It's not even a tenth of what you need, okay? There's a workshop this afternoon, art, fine, you know, that's all useful, media work, fine. But ultimately, we're turning to MPs because a lot of other strategies have been tried, and we haven't succeeded in the last 10 years in getting the troops out of Afghanistan. You have to go to where power is.